Depending on who your friends are and where their talents lie, also, it's not also uncommon to maybe do like a trade-off. Like, say,
totally.
hey, if this person's good in hair and makeup and you're good in video and they need you for this project, you may, hey, yeah, as long as you all both can agree that it's something that is mutual beneficial.
And it's about mutual respect.
Yeah,
I think that's the thing, is like, you know, that, and I think that's where you learn to balance each other out, you know?
What's up, guys? My name is Adison Hardyway.
And I'm Leslie Jones.
And this is the Social Toolkit,
where we try to open your creative box. He thinks he's special. He thinks he's something.
Or Candy dry, whichever comes first. I'm ready. So you guys kind of warned me a little bit about these lights and how warm it gets.
I tried.
It does get pretty warm.
Yeah, it's pretty hot.
Can't say that.
It's hot. You guys can't see. There's literally like 4 lights in front of us, 3 below and above us. So it's a lot. Okay. So we're really trying for you guys. So you guys that are watching on YouTube, you're very special.
I think she's referring to the light of Christ shining above us, because I don't see a light above us, but I'm going to keep that between.
Okay. Really? Like, you literally had to go there? I was trying
I looked
to
up,
be
I was
nice.
like, did I put a light on the wall?
You can tell it was the least techie person on the team. Me.
But anyways, sorry, I just kind of cut you off real abruptly right there.
That seems to be
like
that's a common pattern today. I've been here all day, and Adison has just been like in his own brain.
Man, my mind has been kind of like all over the place because I've already been dealing with the support things with Adobe.
Comment below if you have a friend that cuts you off all the time but means well.
But anyways, what's kind of been on my mind a little bit, and maybe you can put some input into it as well, is the concept of, should you do your friends favors is one standpoint, and whether or not you should go into business with your friends if you want to keep them as your friends.
Now, are you talking about specifically client work, or are you talking about specifically like doing startups? Because I feel like we've experienced both.
That's a good question. So I would define it as, okay, so let's just talk about where we are. So for instance, as photographers, videographers, and graphic designers, if you have somebody who's a good friend of yours, and maybe you've dealt with this in the past,
totally.
How have you handled it? Have you like, hey, sure, I'll do it as a favor, or is it kind of like a mutual trade-off? Or
well, I think sometimes it's free work, and sometimes it's just giving, kind of lowering the value of the price that you normally give somebody. So, and it's hard to, when I think the work that we do is very new and a lot of people don't understand it, so they don't see the hours that go into it. And it's kind of a little bit of what Andre and I were talking about, I think in the last podcast, unless we're going to post them in a different order. But
newsflash, I don't know what order podcast this is going to be, because this is not like the first one that we've
we're kind of like going crazy on filming, you guys. So but specifically I'm talking about the podcast, The Courage to Fail, and Andre and I were talking about kind of the value of the work that we do a lot in that. And I think when it comes to your friends, they see your grind most of the time. They see what you do, but I think they sometimes, and it's not even necessarily a bad thing, but I think they have a tendency to kind of take advantage of it a little bit. And I know I had a client, I used to work at a coffee shop, and just to kind of make some side money so I could pursue these things. But I had a client that would come in pursuing music, and he didn't really know much about social media. He didn't know much about strategy. He didn't have a website, all these things. And we were talking one day, and because I was a lot newer at that time, I hadn't really picked up a lot of clients. One, it's like you need the work, right? You want to you want to build your portfolio, but I was charging him like next to nothing. Like I don't think I would ever like go that, and that's not an arrogant way too, though, you guys, but like, it's okay to value yourself. Like, it's okay to like, and I didn't really necessarily know that at the time. And I ended up putting in like hours, like full-time hours worth of work for literally like, I was being paid $100 a month.
Yeah.
Like literally, like that's like not even stipend worthy money. And like he didn't have a website. I had to take all these photos for him. He wanted me to do all this videography, which I had never done videography before.
Oh, wow.
And like set up audio, like record audio for him, do a website, and keep up social media, at least one post a day, which doesn't seem like anything. But when you're doing content creation and posting and keeping up with your followers and building followers, like it was ridiculous. And I wouldn't, if he had just been a client, I wouldn't have accepted the offer. But because we had a relationship, a friendship, I didn't want to let him down. And I think I had to get to the point where I was like, you know what? This is not a good business deal for me.
Yeah. No,
and unfortunately, like he kind of is like, haven't talked to him since. So it's a little bit awkward. But I think that's where you kind of have to know your value and kind of just be willing to kind of like say, you know what? I think you need to go to somebody professional and kind of take it on that end, and they'll see that you were doing them a huge favor. You know what I mean?
No, I completely agree. And I feel like there can be an entire different segment where we can kind of speak about like paying your dues. Because I feel like there is a certain extent of that that you have to do to kind of build up your credibility. And like you said, your portfolio and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But onto that, because I remember like the first wedding I ever shot, and disclaimer, this is not the price we currently offer, but the first one I ever shot, I think was like $300, and we were there probably for like 10 plus hours.
Yeah, that's low.
But it was like I was like at that point the money really didn't matter to me that much because I was really trying to work on getting a finished product and working on experience and getting the workflow down. So which was interesting. You mentioned that like you really don't talk to this person anymore. Yeah. So do you feel like that relationship might have kind of deteriorated a little bit because of how things went on the business side, or?
I think so. I mean, again, like I don't want to like sit here and like bash a client. Like he's a good guy. I don't want to like, name drop and anything like that. But I think when he didn't have the work ethic, because like that's the thing, when you have a client that's wanting you to do this much marketing based work, you have to keep in mind that client has to be driven, because unless you just are able to literally follow them around full time, you have to be able to, it's a two-way street, so you're kind of almost in a way an assistant to them. You're kind of like doing all of this backseat, like posting and stuff. And that's really the only way you can get started as an intern based kind of thing. But I think with him, he didn't really understand that. And so I think he just had all these ideas going in his head of what he wanted. Yeah. And when he realized that like I couldn't do it, and then I had to end things. I think he kind of just was like, how dare you? Like, what the heck? Like, and then he would get upset. Like, we recorded this one video and he showed it to one of his friends that's more on the music side. And he had a little bit of like some pitchy problems, but it was literally a test run. Like, we had recorded it once.
Had he expressed these concerns to you as well, or just like off to a third party?
Yeah. So, well, he hadn't expressed those concerns. He was showing it to get his friend's ideas. So he was basically saying like, hey man, like, how do you think this sounds? We're wanting to do some raw footage. And the guy was like, hey, there's a little bit of pitchiness. I think you should sing it again. Or like, we could put it in a machine. Like, here's the thing, like, unless you're freakishly talented, like things like that are going to happen. It's not a problem. And, he like did not handle that well and like got super upset. Like I had like messages of him like cussing and like things that, just unprofessional. And I think that's when I realized like, like this is not good for my portfolio. Yeah. And that's when I had to just be like, look, we should go our different ways. I think you need to really think about what you want. And unfortunately, because we had that friendship, now it's just kind of like this awkward thing. And then I'm also like, you're not really, are you somebody I want to be friends with? Like, this is how you're handling stress. This is how you're handling like a little bit of rejection. You're just going to kind of go in there and like,
it's definitely walking across a thin line. And unfortunately, you can see sides of people that you might not otherwise get the opportunity to see once you do go into business with them and things of that nature. So I feel like it is very important. I know we're bouncing back and forth between should you go into business with your friends and should you do your friends favor, but kind of harping on the going into business with your friends. I think it's very important to know who you're going into business with.
Definitely.
And understand that I feel like communication plays a big part. And like all aspects of it. For instance, members of your group or team, if you're in it, and I'll speak again to videography and photography. Yeah, totally. I feel like you should voice your opinion because after a while, what you may notice is somebody's not saying something and saying something, and then here you are thinking that everything you do is great, and then one day they're like, man, I really don't like the way these photos look.
I don't like this. I don't like that. I don't like this. I don't like this. I'm really upset. And then you have a situation where like this person's just pissed off.
Exactly.
You know?
And I feel like that communication is important. And not to say that somebody's opinions are always right, but it'll help you understand, kind of get a feel for where they're coming from and find a common ground, especially if it's like a collaborative project.
Now, here's a question on that, especially specifically going into business with your friends, and I think this ties in the favor thing.
Mm-hmm.
Are you more willing to give grace? So like for those of you guys that don't know, Adison is kind of the head of Skye Studios Media. So we're all kind of team members, but like me and Andre, he heads it up. So he's the main one that like gets the main clients and things like that. So for you, are you more willing to give grace to people that you're friends with as far as like, you know, being late or like craziness or just not texting back, communicating in a way where if this was a new employee, would you handle it the same way? You know what I mean? Like if
That's
you
a good
didn't
question.
know them.
That's a good question. I feel like wow, that's a good one. I feel like because we are friends, by default, there may be a lot more kind of like grace towards that end. Yeah. But at the same time, communication. Right. So that's what you also feel more comfortable. Like, hey, we got to get this done this day, and hey,
you can almost be more forward than you would with somebody that you don't know because you're worried about like hitting their toes. Exactly,
because you're not necessarily worried about stepping on people's toes and how they may respond or react as much because you kind of have an idea of it. But at the same time, so I would say it just depends on the situation. It depends on the situation. How things of that nature are handled, because thank God we have a pretty talented and respectable and loyal group of people, so we haven't ran into things of that issue that much, and if somebody is late or something like that, we still end up getting things done or working around it, but it's kind of like we get over it pretty quick. And
we're kind of joking around because Andre got stuck in a terrible amount of traffic today with a really bad car wreck on I-24. So we're not specifically talking about that situation at all. But I do think it's interesting, you know, in college, they kind of force us to be in group projects and things like that. And I had a group project that I was in last semester, and this guy and I were really good friends, and it was kind of one of those situations. It's like, how much grace do I give for the fact that you have done nothing on this project? Yeah, that's and you're sitting there expecting me to literally do like this 20-page project, and like I did all these graphics for it, like coded the whole thing. I'm pretty proud of it, I will say. But you know, it's like how far are you willing to push those boundaries for somebody when, like, you know for a fact that this was in the workplace, say you were corporate and you were the CEO of this company, like they wouldn't last. You know, and it's interesting to find those lines, I think, a little bit. But then at the same time, like, I think because you're friends, like we have the ability here to collaborate on a much deeper level because we are close and we don't have that awkward, like, you're talented. I don't really know you though. So can I say this to you? Can you say that? You know, it's kind of like we've already passed that bridge a little bit. So I think it's super helpful.
And going on to that, I kind of went into this knowing too, because outside of myself, you and Andre are both still in college. Yeah. So I already know that you all have other obligations as far as education is concerned too. And that will take up a lot of time. A little bit, and it is important to get that finished. So, and I've told Andre this and tell you guys that too. Yeah, school, you know, make sure that stuff gets done first. But yeah, so I completely understand on that end. Yeah. But back to the communication. So what we've typically tried to implement in our group is, I said our group like you're not in the group as well. What we've typically tried to implement, and this may be kind of new. Group.
There's Leslie's group, and then there's Skye Studios, and I just kind of like sometimes like an amoeba, like sometimes
she's off in her own corner, and we just wait by her.
But sometimes I'm kicked out. You know, it just depends on how Addison's feeling. You know.
Wow, I'm really getting painted into a monster there.
I'm just kidding.
But anyways, so we try to do like everybody pretty much sees everything that goes in and out of the door as far as a final video or project here. We haven't done this much lately, but we'll get back to it. We typically have a review process. So when a video is edited or completed, everybody has the opportunity to look at it, put their feedback into it, and then see what the editor's thoughts were and things of that nature. Just so we can all kind of be sign off, because all of our names on it, right? Even though Skye Studio's on it, all of our names on it.
Right.
So we all can go out and say, hey, this is the work that we've done, regardless of if you've edited or you shot it. Everybody plays a big part in it, even if they're just giving feedback or being an assistant editor on it. So it's important for all of us to make sure that I don't want anybody holding back when it comes to, hey, this scene right here was nice. I don't really feel like the colors or this scene right here matched with the one prior to that. Yeah. And as long and the key part of that also is not just saying this sucks, this is terrible. Everybody in our group does exactly. Yeah. Everybody in our group for the most part does a good job of giving constructive criticism or something, and that also will play a good part. And moving forward with your teams as well. Which
I feel like is important to have good friendship with somebody and to take, regardless of if you guys are best friends or not, take whatever personal drama you have out of it. So even like, I think family, like there's a lot of like tendencies for family to kind of bring their personal drama or grievances into the workplace. And I think like that's where you get that really deconstructive criticism. And I think being willing to say, you know, and I'm not at all, but like say if I got annoyed with Adison one day and everything that Adison was saying was just getting on my nerves, you know, like that's not fair. Yep. You know, so I don't need to take maybe something that Adison and I are bugging each other over and bring that into the work, because then you're compromising yourself, you're compromising your own growth because you're not willing to actually like make things better.
No, I completely agree. So yeah, going into doing things for friends for free. I'd be lying if I said I haven't done quite a few things for friends for free
100%.
Or for discounted prices.
Definitely.
And they have not all been the same price or the same thing. It kind of depends on what the situation is. But I did hear you had a list of something you read from Forbes talking about what is that about?
Yeah, so Forbes has an article basically, and it's saying 5 things to say when a friend expects you to work for free. And kind of their intro going into this, I think, is kind of a synopsis is what we've been talking about. And it says, as a professional, you need to get paid since this is how you earn a living. If you give away free services to a friend, there's a chance that other friends will expect you to do the same for them. It's important to set healthy boundaries and make it clear that you can't donate your time or services. And I think maybe we could talk about that a little bit before we even get to the list, because I feel like there's a lot I think that's really wise, because I mean, even in promotion we talk about it. So like with say social media promotion, right? So for Skye Studios, say there was a client that got unhappy with something that we did, and they posted about it and they commented about it, and they're like, I hate this video, you need to give this to me for free. And we commented and said like, yeah, we'll do this for you for free, right? That's public. Well, then what about the next client that just gets annoyed and they say, I want a discount. And then it goes and it goes and it goes and it goes and it goes. And I think unfortunately, even though they are your friends, so say like Adison needed me to do him a favor for free, and so I give him that work for free. Well, then Andre could come in and ask for the same favor, and then I could do it to him for free. And then they tell their friends about it. And then I've lost like hours worth of work for nothing, you know? And so I think it's interesting that Forbes has some different ways to say things in a kind way that keeps your friendship strong, but also keeps your confidence and keeps you in your business mindset, because you don't need to give up on your dream and give up on your integrity for your work just because you want to make your like if your friends are going to get mad at you because you can't give them free work and they're not going to be a friend anymore, are they really your friend?
It's a good question. Know? It's a good question.
So the first one is of the 5 things that you can say is I wouldn't want business to interfere with our friendship. Do you think that one's a successful one? Do you think it's kind of weak?
That's a pretty good one. And we literally had to pause the podcast so that Andre could shut a door. So I really think that's a good one. And I don't know, when I initially hear it, it kind of sounds like a
it's not you, it's me. Like,
like
I don't want it.
Like a push off answer.
Yeah, a little bit.
But I mean, it makes sense. If that's really how you feel that things may go, then I mean, and by all means, use that example, or use that answer rather. But I would potentially elaborate on it a little bit more. in particular, if it's a situation where you're doing something for free and you already have a lot of other projects that you have to get completed.
Yeah.
Meaning, so it's kind of like an unsaid rule, but I would just communicate, yeah, I can do whatever this project is for free if it's something you're willing to do, but the time frame may not be as quick.
Well, it's interesting that you say that, because this even says, like, make it clear that you are capable of offering the services your friend wants, but you would never want to risk your friendship. Yeah. And I think, and it says, like, instead, you'd be happy to offer them some names of other professionals who can serve them. Or it also says if they're willing to pay you, it's a different story. You know, like if you have a client that believes in you and trusts you, like a lot of our clients that we've gotten have been friends or friends of friends. But if they're not willing to respect you for your job and for your arena, it would be like saying, I want a free haircut, or like, I want you to do my nails for free. Any type of service industry based thing, you know, it's still money. Like a client is a client. And I think in this case, like, it's more on us the way we're going to look at that person, because one, we don't want to let them down. The time frame thing is always going to be a mess. And it's like, we're always going to put paid work above free work. Unless it's like, I mean, you get into ministry things and like, you know, that is a totally different line. But I think overall, you're talking about just secular based work. Paid work normally is going to go because of your ROI. Yeah. And I think just keeping that in mind. But like if I have somebody hounding me all the time, or somebody that's taking advantage of me, even if they're a close friend, like I'm probably gonna get annoyed and think negatively of them. And
that's the funny part too, because sometimes it's not even the paid clients who are on you the most.
No, it's
somebody
friends
who you did something for free for. Like, hey, is this done? Hey, how's this going? Hey, can I expect it by this day? And it's like,
like, bro, like you're not even paying me. Like you should
exactly.
If you get it by the end of the year, you should be happy because it's still favor.
Exactly, and I have something similar like that going on. And the only reason is because we went on a trip and we shot some content, and it's probably been about a year ago, but since then we've been kind of getting stockpiled with weddings. Yeah. It's like I can't even open up that project yet until I get all the paid stuff out the door. But yeah, no, I completely understand that.
Do you have anything else you want to elaborate on that one, or do we want to go to the next one?
Let's go to the next one.
Okay. So number 2 says, I'd be happy to schedule an appointment so I can give this the attention it deserves.
I feel like that's a good response. Because one, it shows a level of professionalism, and it also shows that you are interested in it and you want to give it the attention that it needs. Yeah. So I feel like that's a pretty decent response. Yeah. Now, when that gets scheduled.
Well, I also think too, it puts it on the person that's asking the favor. It's like, oh, whoa. Yeah. Like, should I really be doing this for free?
Yeah, and it also, excuse me.
Yeah, excuse me. I'm sorry. I didn't know I had to schedule an appointment to hang out with you, you know?
And slip on a business card, and it's like, dude, I have your phone number. But
oh
we
my
text
gosh.
every day.
That group project guy that I mentioned earlier, actually, he set office hours. And he would be like, you can email me and talk to me between 8 and 5. And I'm like... Interesting. So that's a perfect example of like, and that's the other side of the coin. He's just a lot. If you're watching this podcast, I love you. I'm sorry. You know who you are. I don't hate you. I think you're great. I just think you're a little bit dramatic. But I definitely think that switching it from friendship to a professional setting is just going to change the game. And if somebody, and it kind of puts the ball back in your court and makes the artist, makes us more back into control, which I think is important. So the next one says, this is something that should be handled by a professional. That one, I don't know how I feel about that.
I feel like that's more of a, well now
it could be good.
It could be good if you know that you just cannot handle whatever that task is.
Yeah, it just kind of comes across like I'm putting it off, like whatever. This should be handled by a professional. Obviously, I'm not. Like that's kind of the way it comes across.
It feels kind of funny critiquing some of Forbes' responses.
Yeah, sorry.
Given that they're Forbes.
They're much more. They're much better than us.
But no, I think that's a good response if it is truly something that you are either currently learning to try to get better at or not an expert in. Because oftentimes as a creative, you get asked to do everything that's also in that ballpark.
100%.
Because somebody sees that you do videos, so like, hey, can you do these photos? And you may or may not be able to, but you may not be able to do it to the level that they're expecting, or to the level that you even feel comfortable offering your services for.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with that. And Forbes says this will remind your friend that just like other professionals, you charge for your business transactions. Because what they say that it says, and I think this makes a lot of sense, is saying it'll force them to go on the search for competitors. And when you see competitors, and like, for example, in videography, you know, if you see your competitors charging like thousands of dollars for this video, then they're going to be like, oh, you know, maybe I shouldn't ask Adison for a 10-hour photo shoot or video shoot for free, you know? So it kind of, again, I think just puts it back in the artist, putting the artist back in their position that they are wanting to be in.
And outside of just money too, depending on who your friends are and where their talents lie also, it's not also uncommon to maybe do like a trade-off. Like say, hey, if this person's good in hair and makeup and you're good in video, and they need you for this project, you may, hey, if I help you out with this, do you have time to potentially help me out with this? And it's not to necessarily say be picky. Well, if I spend 5 hours here, I'm only going to spend 5 hours here with these people. I mean, you don't have to go that deep. As long as you all both can agree that it's something that is mutual beneficial.
And it's about mutual respect. Yeah, I think that's the thing, is like, you know, that. And I think that's where you learn to balance each other out, you know? And it's like, I think it's about respect. And I think if that mutual respect shows, the dollar signs don't necessarily matter. If you know, like if I know I go to Adison with something and he asks me something, my value might be totally different than his value. But because we respect each other and we both need whatever we're getting, then for us, our personal value of that thing, like that personal value of hair and makeup at that shoot, might be just as valuable as the actual video shoot for that hair and makeup artist, you know? And
oftentimes I would say that most transactions between creative friends of mine sometimes are trade-offs. Yeah. Which is not uncommon. Sometimes they are trade-offs, or if not, at a lower price.
Yeah. Yeah. So number 4 says, let's see if this is an issue we can resolve during this conversation. So basically meaning give quick advice. So if they're saying, you know, I want graphics done or something like that, then maybe is there a way where you can give them advice, send them to the right thing? Here's, you know, like there's lots of programs like Canva. And I think like Google Photos does some stuff. I think Adobe has a really easy graphic editor program that is made for the common person, you know, sending them to those things, sending them to those links, giving them advice, sending them to, you know, situations like this, like the podcasts that are talking about these things. And that way they feel like they've gotten what they needed from you, but you're also not being forced to do hours worth of work.
Got you. And I also would even go a step further. Yeah. So I would say if this is somebody that you are truly friends with, and you know, if you can make the adequate time, I would say not only just point them to the resources. If it's something that you're good at, maybe spend an hour or two like actually showing them, giving them some of your tips and tricks, because sometimes the reason why that friend is coming to you is because they like the particular way that you do things. Definitely. So not just money, time is valuable too. So, you know, spend some time with people and kind of help them out that way as well.
Yeah. So the last one says, let's schedule a time to talk during business hours.
Interesting. That there definitely puts it more into I'm going to treat you how I treat my clients. Yeah. Type of mentality, which is not necessarily bad to have.
No, I don't think so.
Especially if some of the work that you do is very time consuming. It's not bad to have that. And it also may quickly shift the conversation to, I know we're friends, but if you want to use these services, we have to have a certain level of respect for one another to move forward.
Well, and I mean, I think Forbes even touches on that and says this is a gentle way to remind your friends that your advice is something other people purchase. Yeah. And I think that that's really important. And if it's business related, you'll want to make it a business transaction. Because I think a lot of this is, you know, you don't want to let your friends down. You love your friends. You care about your friends. Obviously, they're in your circle for a reason. I mean, in the Courage to Fail podcast, we were talking about having your close people. You are like your friends, you know, having those core people. But that doesn't mean that you have to lose your integrity. And I feel like all of these 5 different ways of handling things are for different situations and different intensities. And I think different emotions going on, I think you could handle them in different ways and the closest to that friend. But I think it's definitely a gentle way of saying like, hey, I do work for a living. And I think that's interesting about, this is totally like, we could probably spend a whole podcast talking about what I'm about to say, but contract-based work people, it seems like, oh, well, you don't work.
Yeah.
You don't do, and it's like, no, we probably actually put in more hours than a corporate person because we don't have hours off. Like work is wherever we are.
Yeah, and
so
this would definitely have to be
a
part 1 of a series because we could definitely go on for days.
For days.
But I think the biggest takeaway from going into business with your friends and whether or not you should do work for your friends for free is just understanding that every situation is probably not going to be the same, nor will you handle each situation the same.
Definitely not.
So I think it's just kind of being wise in how you maneuver around all of these different situations. But at the end of the day, I know it's so cliche to say, take care of yourself first.
Yeah, definitely.
But I would also just think about not only yourself, but moving forward, how it will affect your friendship with somebody else and things of that nature.
Yeah. Definitely.
Because a lot of people have a lot of good ideas. And if you team up with the right people, those things can happen. And if you team up with the wrong person, it may not happen. And I always tell myself too, like, if it's a good friend, you sometimes may rather, like, you lose out on a company doing all that well, as opposed to the friendship or connection that you have with somebody else.
True.
And that's just how I feel. Hopefully that doesn't have to be the situation. But actually, we were just talking about this prior to the podcast. I was watching the documentary, The Fire, the greatest party that ever happened, and just seeing how the guy heading that was, even though he was getting all these signs and communications from his peers that, hey, this is not going to work, and how he just kept steaming forward. You don't want to be in a situation like that.
No, you got to learn when to stop.
Exactly.
When to realize that maybe your passion isn't your career,
And it may not always be a no. It just may be a at this time.
Not yet.
Because, knowing when to say, hey, no, this doesn't work, or this does work is a good.
And that's a situation of you should listen to your friends, but man, like, people are people. Dynamics are interesting. And unfortunately, like, the world does not work where we can just sit at our computer and just be independent. That would be boring anyway. But I think it's important to discuss these dynamics and kind of bring them to light, because I think it's easy to kind of sweep them under the rug and not talk about them. But I know that, like, for a lot of you guys listening, I know for a fact that you guys have felt our pain. Like, you've been in our situations and you've kind of been like us, where we're like, how do we handle this? Like, how do we text this person back? What do we do? How do we? And it's not a bad thing. It's just kind of like, because you want to make people happy and you want your friends to like you, and like, but at the same time, like, you're obviously a creative for a reason, and you're wanting to push your boundaries and you're wanting to push your dreams, and it's interesting to find that balance.
Yeah, and there definitely are. I know we've been talking about a lot of the negatives, but there are definitely a lot of pros to having your friends.
We could spend hours talking about how amazing it is to work with your friends.
Exactly. One being, if you're going into work with somebody, why not do it with the people that you enjoy being with anyways?
Much better than being
especially if you would be spending time with them outside of your hours of work too. That's definitely a pro. One thing I would be cautious of too is you got to remember that when you're working, you are working. So, because you can spend a lot of time just goofing off doing work hours for hours, and it's like, okay,
we didn't get anything done
to this edit.
That's why vloggers are lucky, because they can just have the camera on and then do it. maybe we should do a different one. Maybe we should just start vlogging. And we don't have to worry about it.
But so we really hope that this opens up a conversation with you guys about working with friends or going into business with your friends. We'll definitely be doing more conversations and series on this. We definitely appreciate you for tuning in. Did you have any other final thoughts?
I was just gonna say, if you like what you heard, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel right below. And if you're hitting up the audio version, make sure you subscribe to wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you want to check out our Instagram and Facebook, type in Skye Studios on Facebook or at Skye Studios Media for Instagram. You can check out our stories, get to know us a little bit better. We all have personal accounts. Those will be in the bio below, and check out more of what our YouTube channel has to offer, because it's pretty dope.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna give you guys a takeaway too before we leave. For those of you who are in business with your friends, I would encourage you all to let your friends know how well of a job they're doing. I feel like we all go by sometimes without acknowledging the strong suits and the accomplishments and just appreciating others. So let them know how much you appreciate them, and we will catch you all later. Appreciate it. Take it easy.
Bye. Peace.